Everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about specifically what it means to have your moon in Capricorn or moon in the 10th house. My name is Brandon. I do astrology videos here on YouTube, and this is part of a much larger series that I'm working on where I go over specifically the planets in each sign and house, and this happens to be the moon in Capricorn and moon in the 10th house. So I do have a playlist down below. You're welcome to check it out, where I go over every single planet and every single sign and house prior to Capricorn and the 10th house, in addition to everything after Capricorn, the 10th house, once I get to those seasons. So this playlist is almost entirely finished. In about 2 months or so, it will be pretty much done. And I'm very excited for that, to just see all the culmination of that work. And it's gonna be really, really, really exciting. But this is another installment in the Capricorn 10th house series. We're gonna talk about the moon in specific. So we are gonna be kind of going into a lot of different things here. We're gonna have some timestamps down below where I talk about specifically the moon in astrology first and foremost, and then the moon in Capricorn, and then the moon in the 10th house, all of which are gonna be able to be clicked through. So if you have the moon in the 10th house but not in Capricorn, or vice versa, you can kind of click on those things. And if you already know what the moon means in astrology, you can just skip over that as well. So if you are brand new to all of this, you don't even know if you have your moon in Capricorn, I'd recommend you also check the link down below to get a better idea of if you have your moon in Capricorn, what that even means, all those sorts of things, and what the rest of your chart kind of is. And if you are brand new to astrology, I'd recommend also, if you like the way that I speak, feel free to reach out to me to get any sort of readings. But also, there's so much information here on YouTube with astrologers such as myself, as well as many others. And I would be happy to help you if there's any way that I can, in addition to this sort of video. So yeah, that's really most of it for the moon Capricorn. There's going to be or the introductory things rather. For the moon in Capricorn, and I have a lot to say about this. I'm really excited, but I'll leave that to the next sort of portions here. But obviously, the final thing here, this is obviously YouTube, and YouTube enjoys letting me know and letting them know that you like my stuff. So if you like my stuff, please like it, please comment, please share, please subscribe. All those things are going to help me out. I'm almost at 1,000 followers, which is like kind of insane. Even though I don't really use YouTube as often as I really should. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm really hoping that we kind of get there over the coming months here. And I'm just really grateful to be able to do this here. But yeah, so without further ado, let's kind of go into a little bit more about what the moon means in astrology. So the moon within astrology. So the moon is this planetary body that obviously moves and changes and shifts throughout a month's time, and it goes new and it goes full, and it has this waxing and waning effect. Okay, so wherever the moon sits by sign and by house, there's not only going to be this kind of ebb and flow to that specific area of life and the themes of that specific sign, but it's also going to create kind of this emotional kind of need and this desire on an internal level to reach whatever that moon placement is wanting, right? And so the moon, it has a lot to do with our mother, our maternal instincts, how we're taught to feel safety and security and assured and kind of confident within our feelings. And this is a very internal kind of process. The moon is a very sensitive part in our chart. It is typically the part of us that we show people when they are close to us, when they are within our family life, when they are within our private life. It's more of this kind of sensitive kind of like core of us to some degree. I mean, there's a lot more within our chart that kind of has more of a core to that. But the moon is a very just soft spot in a lot of ways. It also rules our relationship with the public. It rules how we kind of interact with the public. So if you're a very lunar person, you can have a lot of very interesting relationships with like PR and kind of those things. It also has something to do with collecting, because the moon, as it goes and waxes and wanes, it goes kind of through these cycles rather quickly. And because of that, it has this aspect of kind of collecting things as it kind of, as the waves of water or as the phase of the moon kind of cycle. It kind of goes through the cycle and it kind of collects those things, then it kind of brings them back, and it kind of understands that natural ebb and flow. And the moon is a very, very sensitive part within the chart. Once again, it's part of what's considered our big three, so our sun, moon, and our rising sign. So the moon sign is typically kind of the second step as to where a lot of people start in their astrology journey. Well, they'll start with their sun sign, and they'll go from there to their moon sign, and then from there they'll go to their rising sign. And so it's really important to understand the kind of the weight that the moon sign has, because the moon sign does work a lot with the sun sign. In addition to that, the phase within the moon cycle is also really important. So if you are a new moon person versus a full moon person versus a waxing versus a waning moon, very different kind of energy that you're going to bring. Your lunar energy, if it's culminating to a full moon, it's going to be increasing over time. Versus if it's decreasing towards a new moon, your emotions are going to be kind of more over time going to this kind of internalized kind of reassurance, versus the opposite end of that is kind of like building towards some culmination of some external realization, right? So there's more of this kind of like, the moon is very much like it's its own light that guides us, right? And depending upon the cycle within the lunar cycle that you were born on has a lot of weight as well. So there is a lot of importance to look at that and understanding that that's kind of the way in which you were kind of born, is like that kind of in between, or the culmination points, or those kind of setting intention points, right? So it's important to know that and understand the energy at which you kind of work with. Also, in addition to that, there's also eclipses that you can be born on. Solar or lunar eclipses are going to have a lot of importance if you are born on that particular lunar cycle. But overall, the moon has a very intimate, sensitive, emotional kind of reassurance theme to it. And it does have a lot of sensitivity to it. There's a lot of relationship to our mother, our family, our heritage, our ancestry, how we feel safe, what determines safety to us, right? And the thing about the moon is it is a light that we utilize. So one more thing I want to say is that the moon, when it's a full moon, people don't really care what season it is. They don't really care where the sun's at, to be honest. Like, when it's a full moon, the sun is not the star of the show. It's the moon, right? When it's nighttime and the moon's up there, really important, right? So in that same vein, if you were born at night, the moon becomes a lot more prominent, versus if you're born during the day, the moon becomes less prominent in your chart in regards to a point of focus. So something else I need to bring in that as well. So all that being said, the final thing to kind of just segue this into the next portion is the rulership of the moon. So the moon naturally rules the sign of Cancer, and subsequently the opposite sign of that, Capricorn, which is this video here, is one of the signs that the moon is considered to be uncomfortable in, or in its detriment. Okay. Then the moon is also considered to be exalted in the sign of Taurus, and therefore considered to be fallen in the sign opposite of that, which is Scorpio. So there's a lot of things within that. We're going to talk about the moon in Capricorn, obviously, a lot in the next portion, but understanding where the moon's at within those sorts of spectrums is really helpful. And so we'll get to the moon in Capricorn in the next part, where we'll talk about all those things and what it means to have your moon in Capricorn specifically in that way. So it's the next part, we talk about the moon in Capricorn. Okay, so the moon in Capricorn. So the moon in Capricorn, this is where the moon is forced to be hardened. It's forced to be put within boundaries and controlled and contained. And the moon does not like to do that. In fact, it never does that. It is always kind of growing and evolving and naturally unfolding and experiencing and feeling more comfortable to do that. So the thing about the moon, it does have a lot to do with our comfort. So when we put the moon in a Saturnian sign where comfort is to be rewarded or to be given after a lot of struggle, it makes our idea about comfort like that it just isn't there, and we're used to being uncomfortable. So moon Capricorn, as well as moon Scorpio to some degree, for different reasons, is very comfortable being uncomfortable, because they've been shown that there's a lot of that comfort doesn't really exist. There's no emotional like stability, and they have had to learn how to emotionally grow up really quickly. They've had to learn how to emotionally connect with with their own sort of internal kind of comfort. They've had to learn to comfort themselves, which is good and bad to some degree, because when you comfort yourself, you learn what you really need, right? But the thing about that is when you comfort yourself without any proper guidance from authorities and different parental figures that are able to guide you in how to properly deal with your feelings, you're gonna still act kind of like a kid. You're going to still chase dopamine, chase those certain things that are childlike, that have helped you before, because you're still comforting yourself with what 12-year-old, 8-year-old version of you would want, right? So there is an aspect of that, and it does make you, over time, your ability to comfort yourself and understand your emotions become a lot more solid, especially after that Saturn return. I spoke about this a lot throughout the Sun Capricorn video, but the Saturn return becomes really, really important when you have planetary energies in the sign of Capricorn, because it's ruled by Saturn. It's ruled by that cyclical, slow build, kind of long-term plan of things. And it takes a long time. It takes a very, very long time to understand why you had to not feel things, why the lack of feeling things actually helped you, and how it can actually be of benefit, and how your slow ability to trust, or slow ability to feel, whether trust others or trust yourself, there's this kind of benefit to that allows you to be more cautious, and to be more aware of who you give your emotional energy to. Now, the Moon Capricorn, the image I always get whenever I speak about Moon Capricorn is this kind of image of a beating heart that slowly is allowed to kind of beat further and further and further as it understands how to trust its own emotions and its own feeling and its own expression. So there is a lot with the Moon here that we see that has a very expressive nature to it. And in the sign of Capricorn, it kind of mutes that expression, and it doesn't allow that expression to really be seen, really be felt, really be experienced in an outside way. There's almost a sense of awkwardness to how to connect with someone that has a Moon in Capricorn, because if they're not connecting to you professionally, if they're not connecting to you in an external way, meaning they work with you, they're your boss, their internal life is going to be really interesting, really layered, really kind of riddled with a lot of kind of, how do I navigate this? How do I work with this? There's a lot of family responsibility as well with Moon in Capricorn. And the idea of Moon in Capricorn, similar to the Saturn in Cancer video, which I would recommend if you have Moon in Capricorn to watch, because there might be some specific messages in that might resonate with you as well, because of the fact that the Moon in Capricorn and Saturn in Cancer kind of have similar kind of qualities to them, except Saturn in Cancer is a lot heavier than the Moon in Capricorn. But the Moon in Capricorn has like a family responsibility, something that they are fighting to protect. They're fighting to protect their family. There's emotional responsibility. There really, really is. There's like, I am becoming the parent. I am becoming the protector. I am working so hard to be that person past my family lineage, or evolving past my family's kind of struggles and difficulties. And that's why they likely had a lot of very difficult family upbringings, but they're very hardworking. And the relationship with the public grows over time. So this is someone who wants to have potentially a lot of influence, or a lot of connection with the public, or a lot of connection to the people in general. But then as they age, and as they trust their emotions, as they trust their ability to go deeper and to go further into certain avenues and certain connections and certain emotions, that's where the real juice of it is. That's where the real gift of their ability is. And then they become, later on in their life, they become public figures, right? Because the Moon is all about the public, and Capricorn is all also about the public, but it's about your career. So there is a very public kind of emotional kind of life here, in the same vein as like Moon in the 10th house. It has the same kind of quality to that. But overall, we're going to see the Moon here in Capricorn as having this really deep emotional responsibility, really deep emotional maturity. But there is a sense of emotional neglect that leads to that emotional maturity. And this emotional neglect from parental figures, from society, from loved ones, from friends, all these different things that will ultimately lead the individual with the Moon in Capricorn closer to themselves, closer to who they are, closer to their emotional responsibility, their own sense of self, their own sense of identity. The Moon really has a really beautiful way of unfolding over time. And so with Moon in Capricorn, any Capricorn placement, I urge you to be patient with yourself, be patient with your growth, be patient with what you're planting within yourself and what you're nurturing, and make sure that the emotions that you're nurturing, that you're caretaking for, the parts of you that are so important, that are so shelled off to the world, that are not necessarily shared by anyone, those parts of you that you're taking the time to feel them, that you're taking the time to sit with them, that you're taking the time to honor them, and really understand what emotions you're planting in those moments. Because the Moon Capricorn, they can be one of those people that become either super optimistic through a lot of hard work and a lot of deprogramming, or they can become so pessimistic that they never really outgrow that, and they solidify and they kind of box themselves in emotionally. And there's this sense of the moon that wants to feel, it wants to connect, it wants to feel safe. And so they could also feel like they need to have a place in the world, they need to have a career, they need to have a job. And that is very, very secure. That is very important. But they also need to take care of the internal world as well. And there's a lot of that balance, that work-life balance. And something you'll see as well with the Saturn in Cancer, as the Moon in Capricorn, it's almost like that divide between work and home life is kind of like, it's not really clear. It's not really distinctly like, you don't bring work home with you and you don't bring your home stuff and your home issues to work, right? And the thing is, I would challenge that, because there are careers where those are really important, to bring your emotions into things, to understand how to bring your family, or even working with your family, working in a family business. If you're working in a family business, you have to bring your family into your career. You have to bring your family into what you do, into the work. Or if you're working with people that are, there's this whole thing here that I find is so toxic in some way, and I think the Moon Capricorn people will understand this. But the whole idea that society brings up about, like, when you're here, it's funny, this is like very much a quote, like, when you're here, your family, like, you're working with us, like, we're all family here, air quotes, right? Where it's this idea that when you work with people, you become this cohesive kind of family unit with family dynamics. But then as soon as you get emotionally involved with those people, for whatever reason, HR is called and all these things are happening, and it's like, okay, well, why would we create this sort of thing, this sort of dynamic, if not, and then I play on that dynamic and then it doesn't work, right? In the same vein, I understand the professional boundaries, and that's where the Moon Capricorn doesn't understand that difference, or the Moon Saturn like kind of issue, where it's like, okay, yes, we have a public life, yes, we have a private life, and there is importance in bridging those and understanding when to bridge those, how to bridge those, where it's appropriate, where it's not, and that's very much the whole division. But at the same time, you can't neglect one or the other, right? And when I think about the Moon Capricorn and Moon Saturn, it has this idea, and I've spoken about this video before, and it came up on my feed a little while ago, and what it was this press secretary, someone who was in the press, who was doing some sort of debriefing or some interview, and they work in government, which also is very Capricorn, by the way, and they just lost their wife, right? And they ended up going on this interview and still trying to work with a complete neglect of that emotion and that feeling and that sort of important part. And people kept asking this individual, hey, like, we're sorry for your loss, you can very much take time off, like all these things where emotions, this like brings me down a whole other rabbit hole of stuff that I'm going to get into in a second, but emotions are meant to be felt publicly. And I think something that's really dangerous about our society is that when it comes to mental health, emotional health, and work, right? We praise people that work really hard and put their emotions to the side. And mental health days, very important. Work-life balance, extremely important, extremely, extremely valuable, and so crucial, okay? But what bothers me so much is that you will see people that will only give emotional support to hard workers when it is crisis level, like what I had just mentioned in that previous example. When they lost their child, they lost this, they got a divorce, they're losing their house, they're whatever it might be, all these really intense things. That's when there's a sense of, oh, okay, we need to care about this, when it's that extreme. Versus, I'm having a bad day, there's emotions that are coming up, can I have 5 minutes? No, you got to keep working, right? There's that kind of disconnect with the moon in Capricorn. And this is where I think it's really interesting, because the moon in Capricorn is kind of like that slow, steady boiling that you don't realize kills you, right? That goes over time and time and time. And people don't realize that they've been turning up the heat. And the moon Capricorn is just like, I can handle it. And then it, doesn't help them, right? And it's just them stuffing it down, shoving it under the rug, not looking at it, burying their head in the sand, right? That's very much like a lunar Saturn kind of relationship, like kind of just avoiding the emotions, not looking at the emotions because they're scary and they're hard and they're heavy and they're difficult. But then when we think about like the moon in Scorpio, the other sign the moon doesn't like to be in, it expresses things so authentically, so extreme, so intense that it forces that sort of recognition of their emotions and their feelings, versus the moon in Capricorn is kind of meant to kind of bring that kind of steady, kind of consistent recognition of emotions, right? Where it's not crisis level, this thing happened, now you got to listen to me, right? I don't have to blow up to have you listen to me. It's the steady sort of like, oh, I've seen you slowly decline and be more pessimistic, or I've seen you not eat as much, or I've seen you not, that's more of a moon Capricorn sort of story, where in the reverse, it can also be, oh, I've seen you slowly build your mental health and get better and kind of do that. That's very moon Capricorn, versus the moon Scorpio is like, oh, like you just completely cut everything off. You just went really extreme, like cold turkey, right? And now here you are, right? There's this very like different way of approaching emotions, and it's very private to them. And I think the moon Capricorn, it's really about this slow and steady build, and once again, solidifying those feelings, solidifying what it is that you feel is most important to prioritize and look at and address and acknowledge and feel. Like those are all things that the moon wants to do. And in Capricorn, it's really crucial to make sure that those things that you're feeling are things you want to keep feeling, and not things you want to just feel and ruminate in and sit with the heavy shit. Because the moon Capricorn is going to sit with heavy shit. It's going to keep doing that. It's going to keep just being like, yeah, I want to feel heavy stuff. I just want to keep feeling this low, because I know that's almost like a sense of like, I feel deserving of that. I feel like that's where I belong. And it's like, no, you don't. And much like the moon in Scorpio, it's like you don't belong in like those deep trenches of emotional turmoil and destruction, right? There's this sense of you deserve peace, you deserve comfort, and the moon Capricorn wants you to slowly learn that and slowly trust that and slowly build that from within you through slowly understanding that these are outdated, these don't work anymore, and evolving yourself emotionally over time. And time is your biggest asset as a moon Capricorn individual or a Capricorn placement individual, because the more you do that work early on, the more you study those things early on and plant those seeds in those beginning stages, or even today, right? Even today moving forward, it's going to pay dividends so much, because the moon really, really wants to consistently kind of work on something, especially if you have like a lunar kind of cycle, meaning that if you're doing something monthly, that's going to help you. Keeping it to some sort of routine is going to help a moon Capricorn, where you slowly incrementally increase like the weight, right? Weightlifting is really good for moon Capricorn. Anything that's like you increase the emotional load, right? Or just the weight load, or just kind of the quantity of what you're doing. Like let's say you meditate once a week, right? And then every month, then you increase it by 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, right? That's something that I think is really beneficial for a moon Capricorn, is working on like a monthly routine and setting monthly goals. And then also, of course, working with the public, working with career, having a career thing, and knowing the kind of just the differences between that personal professional divide, and knowing when to kind of like be personal, be professional, and mix those two. Because at the end of the day, you can be all snuffy and Capricorn and do all this stuff and be so rigid and so cold, but at the end of the day, everyone has a private life. Everyone has an internal world that you can connect to, especially as a moon Capricorn, because you're going to want to connect to that. You're going to want to feel like, okay, but what are they doing? Yeah, they've gotten to this success publicly, right? But what are they doing privately to get there, right? And how can I connect to that part? How can I feel into that part? How can I get them to express that part? Because the thing with the moon Capricorn, it's like it has this internal kind of struggle, and it sees everyone else having all this external success, but everyone else has a different ways of dealing with their emotions. And I think it's about recognizing how all the people that are successful, how they have gotten there, how their success can be recreated inside of you emotionally, right? That's something I think is really important in Capricorn, is the self-worth, the knowing that you're deserving, right? Deprogramming and really reparenting yourself. That's something I think is really important as well, is learning how to reparent yourself and to utilize yourself as your own sort of guiding light. And then, of course, if you are a Cancer Sun or Cancer Rising, this moon placement becomes very prominent as well. If you are a Cancer Sun, you happen to have a moon in Capricorn, you are born on a full moon. So really big deal in that regard. That's a whole other conversation that could be had there. So just note that. But there is this very big quality, once again, to understand the cycles of your growth. Understand that your emotions are going to change from day to day to day. And there's a lot of power that you have within that. And I think there's so much of consistency that needs to be had for a moon Capricorn to understand and trust their own feelings. So yeah, trust yourself. Keep trusting yourself, keep feeling yourself, keep learning how to intuit your own kind of emotions and parent yourself, right? Know how to guide yourself and trust yourself through your emotions and feelings, and know how to separate those things as well. Yeah, I think it's really, really powerful in that regard. So that's the moon Capricorn. Let's see at the next part. We talk about specifically what it means to have your moon in the 10th house. And one more thing, I hope this helped you as a moon Capricorn, just because I know there's a lot of rigidity and a lot of discourse online about the moon Capricorn and it being really negative and all these things. And I really hope this video helped somebody. I love this. I love doing this. I love helping people. And I hope that you feel loved and appreciated and validated after all of this. And yeah. And so if you want anything with me, want any questions with me, please comment down below. I want to hear more about your Capricorn moon story, what that has been like for you, what your family life is like, what the emotional kind of connections feel like, and trusting that those will kind of fade over time. So that's all I want to say in that regard. I just hope this helped you. And then, yeah, now we're going to go to moon in the 10th house. So we have the moon in the 10th house. So the moon in the 10th house can be very different than the moon in Capricorn, because the moon in the 10th house can play a bunch of different roles in how it is playing out. Because whenever we have a planet towards the 10th house cusp, this is going to influence the career. It's going to influence the public image, influence part of how we reach our goals, part of how we strive to incorporate that planet into our public life. And when we think about the moon, this is incorporating our family, incorporating our mother, incorporating, our emotions into it, our caretaking ability, our relationship with the public. So there's a lot of the moon 10th house people, I think, have a lot of publicity kind of brought to them, similar to the sun in the 10th. And it can almost be even more so to some degrees, because the moon really is about that emotional reassurance. So this is where you'll see, for good or for bad, you'll see this kind of like striving to get some sort of emotional validation and emotional connection with society. Similar with the moon in Aquarius as well, and the moon in 11th. There's this almost like, I want to connect my emotions to something out there, something in the world, and I want to be felt on a bigger way that's outside of my family, or that's outside of my little kind of, integral kind of world, right? So moon in the 10th, a couple examples that I'm going to bring up that I've brought up in previous videos, mainly just one of them is the moon in Taurus. And they're both moon in Taurus is actually at the top of the chart. One of them is a client of mine, and one of them is Jeanette McCurdy. And when you think about the moon at the top of the chart, it's very much this kind of family things are up there being seen and known for your mother or seen and known for your family. And when we have the moon, specifically in Jeanette McCurdy's example, it's a moon in Taurus, I believe with Mars, and then opposite Pluto in Scorpio, where there's she was very well known for really kind of the book that she had wrote during her Saturn return, which was all about I'm glad my mom died and that whole idea. And I know I talked about that in my Moon Taurus video, so feel free to check that out for sure for more information on that. But when we think about the moon in the 10th, it really brings out the family stuff. The mother becomes so much more important. And that's an exalted moon as well, meaning it just even more so brings them up there. And the other one I know is a personal friend of mine who's a moon in Taurus at the top of the chart. She literally works with her mom. She literally works with her mother to create jewelry in that regard. And I think there's a lot of power in that placement when the moon is exalted towards the top, where it really wants to kind of be seen. It wants to kind of have this rich relationship with the public and making money from the public as well, through its ability to provide value. And the moon Taurus, when we have the moon in a well-placed sign, at the top of the chart, or just in a confident sign, so fire, or most mainly Taurus, fire, right? They're gonna want to provide value and be assured and want to kind of be up there, right? So moon in Taurus, though, just to kind of get that one out of the way in its entirety, there's a lot of providing value and deep emotional value and knowing their value, and being able to bring that into form in a lot of ways and kind of being very confident. So the moon Taurus are the ones that they still might struggle with that work balance kind of thing there, home life and professional life, and kind of knowing how to navigate those kind of two areas and integrate them. But once they do integrate them, I think it'll be very, very stable. And that's another thing about the moon 10th. It's about integration of those two areas of public and private. And then, of course, you want to look to your moon's aspects, and as well as the house that rules Cancer. And then, of course, if you have a Cancer ruled chart, the moon's going to become really important in a lot of ways there too. Yeah, that's pretty much the most of it there. But the moon in the 10th, before I go into each kind of sign and things like that in a moment, the moon in the 10th, it's really just this public being seen for maybe emotions, good or bad, being seen for a private part of you, and connecting to a maternal kind of way. Your career point and how people view you publicly is very sensitive as well, because the moon's at the top of the chart. It's a very sensitive perception. So this is why there can be people pleasing that will inevitably lead to, hopefully, based off of the person, a sense of self-acceptance and acceptance with being seen in whatever way that the public chooses to see them. Because the moon, when you think about the moon at the top of the chart, it is something that we always, if we think about a full moon, right, and we go outside and we see a beautiful full moon at the top of the chart, and it's the top of the horizon up there, we're like, wow, that's beautiful, and you can admire that, and there's a sense of admiration, there's a sense of divinity, there's a sense of projection of an omen, right? And so many people will project upon people that have 10th house planets, but I think the moon has it kind of a lot, because it's our subconscious, our emotional desires, our kind of parts of us that are private and hidden. We kind of want to see that in them, right? And so you can see this projection from people for you to be perceived or felt a certain way. And there's a lot of just kind of wow, they're this person publicly and it's great, right? But they don't understand what it took to get that moon 10th house person to that point, right? So that's something I think needs to be recognized as well, is the projection that people do with lunar individuals, that might not be done for solar I think a lot of 10th house planets will have this in general, but the moon I think has it a little bit more it's more personal because it's the moon, right? It's more sensitive to them. And they have to get used to that projection. They have to understand that that's part of the natural process of being seen and bringing yourself up there so vulnerably. There's a lot of vulnerable expression too, in that way. Yeah. So that's the moon just in general in the 10th. But I wanted you to know as well, I've done the moon in every sign prior to this. If you have your moon in any sign prior to this, and then of course any sign after this, it will be in the playlist, both already or moving forward in the next couple of months. All these videos will be done, and so you'll be able to see every moon sign at the top of the chart in that regard. But I'd recommend you watch the moon sign video first. So if you have your moon in Scorpio, for example, watch that video first prior to watching this moon in the 10th house video, and so on and so forth. And then of course the moon placement with the aspects are also really important. So if your moon is, in Gemini and it's, square to Jupiter or opposite Saturn or whatever, there's going to be a lot of different sort of ways that this can kind of play out. So it's not just the moon itself, but you need to be looking at the entirety of it, which is why it's important to get a reading. It's important to kind of look at all the different aspects of that and how they all kind of play into one another. And the moon is a very sensitive point in the chart. So I really want to really impress that upon you, that the moon is really, really sensitive. So take all of what I'm saying in this moon 10th house portion with a grain of salt, and actually take everything that every astrologer says with a grain of salt, because isolating just the moon in the 10th house will tell me certain things, but once again, looking to the entirety of the chart is going to give you the full picture. And once again, in addition to that, I have not lived your life. If you have the moon in the 10th house, I have not lived that life. I have not lived the entirety of anyone's chart besides my own, and therefore I do not have your lived experience and your story. I have a snapshot, and I can tell you certain themes, but I do not have your exact lived experience and your perspective. And so I am not attacking anyone with the moon 10th house. I am not attacking anyone with any placement but in that regard as well, like across the board. I am simply saying this is how it's perceived. This is how it might come across. And I want to just really make that known because I know how sensitive the moon 10th house can be, because it is like this public sensitivity, right? So I want you to know that you have your own story, and I want you to really center in that and just see how these specific little, very, very niche sort of comments I'm going to make about each sign in the 10th house moon, how it can play out, and just kind of sit with that and see. And then, of course, once again, go to the sign placement and the rest of your chart to kind of get a better idea. And then, of course, at the end of the day, if you want to get a reading, but then even further, more importantly from that, listen to yourself. So, yeah. So, anywho, moving on from that, we have the moon in a fiery sign, Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius. So the moon in these signs here at the top of the chart, these are going to be the trailblazers, the ones that go and do things, the one that cause inspiration, that cause things to happen. If we have moon in Aries, right, this is a Martian ruled sign. So there's going to be a lot of fighting with the public, not necessarily, but a lot of trailblazing, starting new things, being the first, right, in their family. There's a lot of moon Aries stuff is all about being the first in their family to do something, and needing to connect to the emotional motivations in others. So there's a lot of potentiality of working in physical fitness, working as a sales leader. There's a lot of leadership, but emotional leadership that can come across as a moon Aries in the 10th. With the moon in Aries as well at the top of the chart, there can be some issues with bosses and issues with father figures and that kind of weird kind of father daddy issues, quote unquote, that pull you up to want to do things. That's the 10th house moon thing in general, not necessarily moon in Aries, but there's a sense of needing to appease to an authority, and that's very 10th house. So that's an aspect of it there. And then moon in Leo, this is the sun sign. So the moon in Leo here, this is where this can be the very artistic, the one that's being seen. And the thing with the moon and fire, all of them, Aries, Leo, and Sag, it's about creating some inspiration in others, creating some fire in others, literally, and starting something new, inspiring and motivating and invigorating and opening people's minds, right? And the moon in Leo is simply just meant to be proud. So this is where I think you would see more moon in Leo at the top of the chart. You would see more of that sensitivity towards projection and sensitivity towards people not seeing you for you. And I think there's a lot of stories around Moon Leos that go towards a lot of like artistic and expressive pursuits of who they are. There's a lot of criticism, and there's a lot of public figure stuff here with Moon Leo, where they're meant to kind of be seen publicly, and it's very emotional, very sensitive, and they have to get used to that kind of not being seen for how Moon Leo would want to be seen, which is very pure and joyful. And like there's a lot of inner child critic stuff that kind of plays into all of that, where like they get these kind of emotional kind of hits from people that kind of goes against that like inner child. Yeah, there's like inner child critic stuff there. But great in arts. And then Moon in Sag at the top of the chart. Once again, this is like a fiery one, so this is going to really help inspire people, teach people, help people culturally. There's a lot of cultural competency stuff here, meaning people that are aware of different people's cultures, different people's perspectives, different people's kind of ways of life, and how they kind of work and learn and look at different holidays and different sorts of religious and spiritual and cultural sorts of upbringings and perspectives. There's a lot of that can happen with the Moon in Sag at the top of the chart. A lot of just teaching, philosophy, seen for a very intellectual person. The Moon in general, and at any angle really, can kind of be very public facing. But most specifically, the Moon at the top of the chart is very public facing, and it has a lot of like public relational things. And so this can be teach people about different ways to relate publicly. Legal stuff as well, work in law, similar to Moon in Libra, or Moon in Pisces, but more so Moon in Libra. Out of any of them, could be working in law. But yeah, that's kind of the ones there. A lot of like religion and spiritual beliefs and stuff in Moon Sag. I like that one. I'd recommend you watch the Moon Sag video for sure. And any of these Moon Leo, Moon Aries, go watch those videos. And then Moon in an air sign, so we'll go to air next. So we have, even though I typically don't, but we'll do Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Already kind of went to Libra a little bit. The Moon in Libra at the top. This is someone who is going to have like a lot of connections with law and relationships and things of that nature, where they're going to feel very emotionally required to connect with somebody to get to their career and connect to whatever it is that their partner wants of them, or whatever creates the most harmony with people or the public. So this is why I think PR, HR professionals, especially HR professionals, like there's a lot that is just relational business. Like that's just a whole thing, relational public business. Like that is just all of that. Like all the Moon air signs are all these like moderators, that's more Aquarius, but like moderators or like panelists or, you know, kind of facilitators or counselors, or the people that are in a group setting or in a social setting and are kind of guiding it or assisting it or supporting it, and supporting conversations, right? So like Moon Libra, like I said, HR, that's like so HR, so legal, so all of that, like advocating for other people, very much that. Same with Moon Aquarius. The Moon Aquarius at the top is more of like that's more of, like I said, like the moderator, the breaking apart people's beliefs, similar to Moon in Sag, except Moon in Sag has more of a, like, my mother had taught me something really inspirational. That's the thing, too. The mom's belief systems and the mom's kind of ethics and morals really are imprinting your career path. So a lot of the Moon 10th house people, they step into careers that are similar to their mother or similar to their family line, and they want to bring they're doing, and a lot of people will work for their mom. And I both mean this in the sense of work under their mom, like as a career, but then also work to support their mom. That's another aspect I can see there as well with the Moon in the 10th, in both Sag and Aquarius. But there's an aspect of like learning and teaching what the mom's belief systems are on both of those in some way, with the Moon Sag and Moon Aquarius. The Moon Aquarius, like I said, there's more of like a social kind of, I want to advocate for a group, and that's once again HR, but it can be like group advocacy. These are the ones when we have Aquarius at the top of the chart, and this would be more relative to like Mars, but you would see the like social, like the socialites, the group organizers, the ones that are really running something like socially. That's something I think is really really powerful for moon in air is to be like the voice of something, the voice of the people, especially moon Aquarius. There's a lot of voice of people things. And then moon Gemini has a similar quality where it is speaking for the people, having conversations, gathering information, having those kind of talks. That's when you'll see with the moon in Gemini is kind of this kind of like chattiness. This is where you'd see someone who like runs a journaling business or runs a social media marketing, or versus like moon in Libra would be like a fashion agency or a kind of fashion blog or like beautifying someone's social media. The moon in Gemini is more like the journalist thing, working with the public information, very much journalist energy. Very much this kind of like, even like mailmen or like running like a mailing sort of like mailing list or marketing. Marketing is really good for moon. Moon Gemini is probably one of the best marketing people you could ask for. Really great at marketing, really great in sales at the top of the chart. That's just on top right there. I like that one. Moon Libra has more of like a socialite kind of like PR, HR, balancing the scales, fashion, law, those sorts of things can be really like prominent, helping other people feel beautiful with Moon Libra. But yeah, Moon Gemini, there's like a lot of like marketing, sales stuff, just in general, but in the 10th house, it's very much that. Marketing expert, sales expert, or working with like deliveries as well. Packaging, those sorts of things are very lunar. Lunar, specifically Lunar and Mercury. They're very like changing, working with the public and like exchanging goods and services. So yeah, like driving as well, delivery driving, taxi driving can be very moon in that way, or like public policy is also a thing. Writing things for the public can be a thing, as for all the moon signs in air. Just public relations is big for all moon signs in the 10th, but I think moon in air has the most public, the strongest indications of public relations that are very just social, like 100% social, which all public relations are, like relating to the public, you kind of have to be social, but there's ways to relate to the public, which you'll see in a moment when we get to water, that aren't as accepted or normal, right? And that's where we get to like moon and water. So moon in Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. When we put moon in a water sign, it's so sensitive. So this is where you see the therapists. This is where you see the psychologists. This is where you see the ones that go and have experienced so much emotional things, the psychics, the intuitives, the healers, the shamans. The moon in a water sign is so like sensitive and soft and caring and loving, and it wants that to be what it's bringing to the world. It's not necessarily information, it's a feeling, it's a sense of safety, a sense of security, a sense of assuredness and comfort that the moon wants, especially in Cancer at the top of the chart. That's like a very, very sensitive person up there. And the moon in Scorpio, they want an authentic relationship with the public. So these could be detectives, these could be ones that want to really provide very deep emotional value. But overall, the moon in the 10th, even in and out of water signs, they want to provide emotional value to the public. That's what they want. They want to have a career that's emotionally valuable to them as well, but to the public. They want to have that emotional connection to their career, which everyone should want. Some people don't want, but everyone should want, in my opinion. Not just because I'm a very lunar, career-oriented person in my own chart, but that's beside the point. So when we think about like the moon in Scorpio, they want pure authenticity. They want no BS type of emotional careers. They want stuff that is so pure, that is so true emotionally, that allows them to have that expression and be like, okay, and that's where you see detectives. That's where you see lawyers to some degree as well. Doctors can have this. But because it is a moon fall on the top of the chart, this once again has a lot of the qualities of like getting verbally, emotionally kind of reprimanded by the public. So there's a lot of like cancel culture stuff with moon Scorpio at the top of the chart. The moon in the 10th can have that, just cancel culture, like being canceled for not having their emotions under control or not getting their own emotional biases or their own emotional kind of personal stuff out of the way of being public, right? So the personal public kind of divide is very moon 10th, but moon Scorpio, there can be like literally a fall from public opinion, or a rise to public opinion as well, from a fear of being publicly perceived. That's what I think is really interesting about moon Scorpio. There's half the chart. Just Scorpio energy is just so much fun. And then moon Pisces there. This is just like the psychic, the intuitive, the medium, the one that's lost, the lost artist. It's interesting because when you think about the moon and then Pisces at the top of the chart, there's a sense of, it's sad because on one end, it has healer, multidimensional healer written all over it, right? It has so much compassion and love and artistry written all over it. But the moon Pisces at the top of the chart also has this like lost soul energy. And when we think about people that are publicly seen as lost souls, we think of homeless people. We think of people struggling with mental illness, right? And I think with the moon at the top of the chart in Pisces, it becomes this, how are you utilizing all of that sensitivity? Like all that. It's a lot of sensitivity to deal with when you are bombarded with public opinion and public energies that you might not understand. And there is a sense of spirituality that is needed for all moon Pisces, but most importantly, those that have it at the top of the chart, because it becomes this public-facing, publicly seen thing where people see you publicly and they're like, I can't quite figure out what your feelings are, right? And that becomes this confusion within yourself that then causes more kind of internal turmoil. But the moon Pisces is so compassionate, so artistic, so they're beyond their age, they're beyond their years in their sensitivities and in their gifts, and it's about how they bring that to the world and bring that into fruition. And they're so vastly creative and so imaginative, but they need to bring that kind of into reality, into form. And so these could be great grief, addiction counselors. All the moon water can do that. There's so much like emotional support that they can give in their career. It's so beautiful. And their family karma is huge. Moon in the 10th kind of has a huge family karma across the board, but moon Pisces for sure. And I'll get to that eventually in a couple seasons here, but yeah, that's a lot there. And then finally, you patient moon earth people, we have moon and earth, so moon Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. So moon in Taurus, I had said this one earlier, Jeanette McCurdy and my other friend of mine, who they have this moon exalted, which is so stable, so good, but it also forces that stable family life to be up there, whether you want it or not, right? And so when you have an exalted moon at the top of the chart, it is great for a lot of things. It is great for connecting emotion to the public. It is great for making money from the public as well. That's probably the best one, I would say, is making money from the public and solidifying that and just being brought publicly up to the top of wherever you want to be in your career. And there's a sense of real estate as well, real estate investments that come with moon Taurus and a career in real estate. Moon in the 10th, too, just in general, has real estate, maternal jobs, so anything in restaurants can be like highlighted with the moon in the 10th outside of it being in an earth sign. There's so much like working within those sorts of spaces. But the thing with the moon in earth in the 10th is they want to provide value to the public that is practical, real, grounded, right, in reality. And in Taurus, it's money, it's financial, it's physical, it's I want to manage someone's finances, I want to manage my own finances, I want to make money, I want to make jewelry, I want to make product, I want to make clothes, I want to make textiles, I want to do fashion, I want to make art, right? All those things. And want to find out how to ground that into reality. And it's similar to moon in Pisces. There is a connection there. But it's a little bit different with moon in Pisces because moon in Pisces gets lost and that doesn't know how to really ground that. But the moon in Taurus really knows how to do that in a very profound and powerful way. And then finally, the moon in Virgo has this is doctors. This is very doctor-esque, this is very healer-esque in some regard. There can be a very critical family life with this moon in Virgo, where needing to nitpick and figure all that stuff out with moon in the 10th. And the mom could be really wanting them to be a certain way publicly. And there's a lot of like family expectations. And that's once again, another all-sweeping 10th house kind of moon thing is family expectations to be something. And family pressures, family career. There's a lot of that, like needing to do something for the family. Like the family pressures you to do something. And the moon in Virgo, there's a lot of like anxiety around how your mother makes you feel like you need to be successful in certain ways in that regard. The moon in the 10th in Virgo, and it's likely like indoctrinated like in what you do for work and like really wanting to be a doctor, a lawyer, or medicine, or engineer, or in tech, whatever. There's some stuff there too. Moon in Virgo would do really good in tech as well. There's a practicality to it. Similar to moon in Gemini, it could be really good with marketing, but this is more data analytics. This is more of those sorts of things. So once again, tech in that regard. Anything relative to what is that? Like coding, like, writing computer code and stuff. Computer engineering, computer science could definitely help you. And therapy, both, and this is moon 10th house for everybody, both like taking therapy, receiving therapy, but then also like being a therapist, because once again, you want your emotions to be part of your career. So how you've worked through your emotions and how you've practically understood them. This could even be like a dietitian, right? A dietitian, someone who is helping someone through their own health routine, someone who's a nurse. Like nursing is so Virgo, and moon in the 10th house in Virgo is like nurse. And everyone was a nurse in your family, right? Or everyone was a mechanic, right? All those sorts of things. Like there's a lot of practicality, there's a lot of trade school kind of careers here. Like welding, those sorts of things are very like earth-oriented energies or elements there. And then finally, Moon Capricorn. You guys here for this video. This is, the one that I would say will become a boss. Will become the boss, the CEO, all those things. And they want to strive towards something. These are the ones that I think will have working for the family business pretty prominent here, because they're putting the 4th house into the 10th. So it's literally like, okay, well, whatever the family stuff is, it's what I do. And whatever that private stuff is, whatever that ancestry stuff is, whatever my roots are, that's what I do. And it's connecting those emotions. So this is working with your family. This is working through your family's lineage, your family's karma, as well. Once again, full sweep for the moon 10th house. It's like a whole thing, working through your family's karma. And both like working through it like internally, very much so, but like also externally a lot in that regard. But the moon Capricorn in the 10th, there's a lot of like slow build on how you trust yourself emotionally to go after your career and go after those career jumps, right? Go after trusting yourself to take that next promotion, to go towards those promotional things. And the thing with moon in the 10th, it's going to consistently increase that promotion ability. So you are going to cyclically kind of evolve as you're consistently doing the work, as the moon consistently goes in cycles and cycles and cycles. So as you trust those cycles, trust that timing, trust that season, because not everything's a season in your career. It's, and some seasons you're at your peak, some seasons you're at your lowest, some seasons you're at your highest, right? Some seasons you're kind of just going and floating, right? It's about trusting that kind of season in which you're in, and astrology is a great way of practicing that and understanding that and addressing that and accepting that, because we can look at the cycles and see where you're at. And so knowing your moon is in the 10th, recognize that the cycle is going to take some time. Recognize that your impact on career, your impact on society is going to be pretty emotional, pretty profound, pretty personal to you. But it's also about connecting to what your internal motivations are, and then connecting to an emotional center and bringing that out there, right? You could literally create a career around creating an emotional center, and when I say a center, I literally mean like an actual space, like a safe space, right? Creating a safe space, building a home, building a center that people can go to feel safe and secured. There's a lot of internal interior design as well that can be a part of the moon in the 10th, and bringing that kind of safety out into the world, bringing that security out into the world. And your security only comes from within you and what you do on the inside and what you do in private. And that's what the moon's about. And the moon sign is going to give you all these different layers, right? But in the 10th, it's about bringing that out to the public and showing that emotional work that you've done. So keep doing that work. Keep consistently doing it. It will be worth it. It will pay dividends. It will be part of your career. It'll be what you're known for, and you'll love what you do for work the more you feel into your feelings and you understand why you want to do that thing, why that feels so good to you on an internal level. And it's so beautiful. I love my moon 10th house people. I love I love lunar people in general. I just love emotional things and emotional conversations and people that are lit up and passionate about what they want and passionate about their emotions. If you can't tell after my very long video on this, I love astrology. This is what I love to do. And it is one of the things that gives me so much joy and understanding to be able to look at these things and give my gift and spread my knowledge and help people understand the way that I see things. And it means so much to me to be able to find value and to teach and to expand people's minds. And I love what I do. And if you like anything in this video, please put a like down below, put a comment down there, subscribe, all those things. And of course, all of these videos are in a playlist and you're welcome to check those things out. And then finally, if you have any other questions about connecting with me, my link's down below. You can feel free to connect with me there and subscribe and all those things. And then finally, one last thing I want to say, because I've been saying this in all the different videos, I have down below, because Capricorn is very heavily affected by Saturn, there's a Saturn video down there I did with another astrologer. And then also, knowing your moon sign is very important. It's the very first, I guess, second step to astrology. But then in addition to that, it's important to know what the ruler of your moon is and what that's doing in the chart for like the next step or the next layer. So if your moon is in, Virgo, look to your Mercury. If your moon's in Aries or Scorpio, look to your Mars. If your moon is in, any of these things, that is how you kind of can see more of the layers within your own chart of how this all very intricate way of looking at the world works. And so I really, really hope this video helped literally anybody. I love doing this. I love astrology. I love being able to provide this, and I hope that this was able to impress upon you the importance of you loving what you do as a Moon 10th house person, and you loving your emotions and accepting yourself over time and becoming to terms with what you are here to do for the public and loving all of that. So thank you so much, my Moon 10th house and Moon Capricorn individuals, for watching this. I appreciate you. I love you, and I will talk to you guys soon.